Okay, we're recording.
We are live.
We are live. Hello.
Hello.
Yeah, so we're going to talk about some questions that we got from our athletes. And we have 7 questions, not 6. So
But it's counting.
yeah, who's counting? So we'll go through those and then hopefully it'll clear up any uncertainties that people have. And then if anybody has any follow-up questions, they can ask them in their logs or they can ask them on the Facebook page. But we really like doing this kind of thing. So whether or not you like listening to it, we really like it because it's a good way to talk to all of our clients as a whole instead of just 1 or 2 of you in the log. And so many of you have the exact same questions.
Yeah.
So,
and
yeah.
give us feedback if you have questions, answers, but not if you don't like hearing to us, then just exit.
Yes. Yeah, and that's also the good thing about the video is we can't tell if you've watched it, so it doesn't hurt our feelings.
Yeah. All right, here we go.
Yeah. So the first question we have is for strength training, how do you decide between more weight and more reps? It seems like there's increasing evidence that more weight with fewer reps is more useful for runners. But heavier weights always leave my legs so trashed that I'm walking like John Wayne for 3 days.
I feel like I could have written that question myself.
Yeah, so actually, Jenny and I are both gonna give our input to each question, but I'm gonna, just for simplicity's sake, answer the first 3. And then Jenny, if she either has something to add or disagrees on something, then she'll add her 2 cents when I'm done. Because we're kind of just just winging this. But I think for any athlete, our simple answer is that with high mileage, so something that you would be in your tip-top building block, and a lot of you are in high mileage. But if you're running relatively high mileage, we would say to do actually lower weight or resistance bands and more reps. So something like 3 rounds of 10 to 15. But if you're doing really, really low mileage, or you're starting your base, then that's when you can start to add things in like higher reps and higher weights. So that would be something like 5 rounds of 5. And that's when you talk about in your question, I'm walking like John Wayne for 3 days. That's not good. That probably means that your weights are too heavy to begin with. And that's not necessarily something we're looking for. It's totally okay to have 1 day delayed onset muscle soreness, but if your muscles are genuinely sore for 3 days after, then we'd probably ask you to reduce your weights. So that's our basic answer, but also it really depends on each athlete. No 2 of our athletes do the same plan, and that's because you're all starting from a totally different place. So if you, like currently there is a pandemic and people are afraid to go to gyms, but gyms are open. So some of you are going to the gym and some of you aren't going to the gym. Also right now it's winter, so some of you have quite low mileage, but actually some of you who are a little bit more advanced have quite high mileage. So there's just a lot of different variables. But we do, so yeah, we do want to work with you individually. But if you feel as an athlete, like you've read the science and it says that you're supposed to do heavy strength training, which we both agree with and we know, if you feel like you should be doing more, then you really need to tell us in your log so that we can figure out a way to mix that with your running. Because if we're going to be adding heavy strength training weights to your plan, then we have to take the running away, because the only way we can make those gains is not by pounding your legs. And ultimately, running is first. So yeah, simple answer is low mileage, higher reps, higher weights, high mileage, lower reps, lower weights. But if you feel like you want more from that, then you need to talk to us probably on a more individual level. And you'll see, like, maybe you'll only be running 3 days a week and then you'll be doing heavy strength training. Yeah, well, that's right. It's it's kind of a give and take, because a lot of these studies are also performed, well, there's a bunch. So there's the women's studies that are done on maybe marathon athletes, or maybe not athletes that are necessarily running as much as we are as ultra athletes. So they're endurance athletes, they're runners, but they might not be getting the kind of mileage that we're getting. Or they're on really like young fit males who can handle anything. So
Yeah.
so we kind of, that's why we work with you on an individual basis.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Only thing I would add is that there's also some of the studies around like pre and postmenopausal women where sometimes heavier lifting has been shown to be better for injury prevention.
Mm-hmm.
So again, it's, yeah, like Katrina said, it's basically individualized. Best thing when, like, if you're individually trying to choose, if like, or even just pick our brains about if you are going to be working towards more reps or heavier weights, we're probably building you towards more reps.
Yeah, yeah. I totally agree. And with the older female population too, we often have them running less anyway. So this like higher rep, higher rate ratio kind of works because they have more rest in between. So yeah. Actually, one other thing to add, I really like strength training. So I won't talk as much on the other questions maybe, but when you've been strength training a lot, so you've been, let's say in a perfect world, you had a low weekly mileage over your winter, and you've been strength training 2 to 3 days a week with heavy weights. If you've been doing that consistently, and keep in mind that's a really key word, consistently, then you can actually reduce the amount of days that you're strength training later on. But you can't just start from there. So if you're coming to us and you just want to start with all these really heavy weights, it just doesn't work that way. Like it's a slow gradual build up to a certain level, and then kind of like a slow gradual build down. It's quite a fun process.
Yeah. I think that's why I was like, oh, I can relate to this question so much, because that idea of like the walking like a cowboy or whatever it is, like walking like you've obviously just lifted really heavy things. Like that's kind of a tendency I feel like a lot of athletes have, is when they are physically capable of doing more. Like I've experienced, I'm like, I'm going to run 10 sets of these stairs. It's like, I haven't ran one set of stairs in for like however long. And then, yeah, you walk funny for 3 days. So like you physically are capable. It doesn't mean that it's going to get you what you want or be the best thing for your actual end goals.
Yes. Yeah, totally. Yeah. And also, not to make this a monetary thing, but we do offer like it's $50 extra a month for like a legit, like if you want to be strength training like that, then it's a $200 a month thing, and nobody's asked for that yet. So we give you that.
Because we like to run.
We like to run. Yeah. So, so the next question is about easy pace. And essentially this athlete wants to know, does it just come with training over time, or do you suit certain types of runs? So your easy runs, tempos, it says times of run, but I think he means types of runs. Easy runs, tempos, intervals, whatever, tend to increase easy run pace. Yeah. So thank you for asking this question, actually, because I think we remind athletes about easy pace, if not weekly, then by like every 2 weeks, right?
Probably weekly.
Yeah, just so this is a great reminder. And even after this, we're still going to remind you about your easy pace. So, and this is a really easy one for us. So overall, if you're consistent with your training and you don't take huge breaks from running and stay relatively injury-free, yes, your easy pace will probably increase over time, but it doesn't for everyone. So the main type of run we use to increase speed in our athletes and ourselves are strides. Tempos and these fast-paced runs are where you test your speed, but really, really hammering these runs doesn't necessarily make you faster, because usually when you're running when you're doing your tempos or your speed workouts, you're pretty tired, so your biomechanics are off a bit. So the way that we do strides, which all of you do 1 to 3 times a week, depending on your level, is we typically ask you to stick them in the middle of your run. So maybe right in the middle, we might like actually program them out for you, but usually we'll say, I don't know, 13 kilometers easy with 4 times 30-second strides or 20-second strides. But I don't know, Jenny, like, do you want to go over like actually like how to do a stride?
Not sure what you mean by go over. Like
I know it's so basic, but I just like
no. Oh yeah, no. I think if you mean like talking through it, yes.
Well, just like okay.
I'm like, does she want me to demo?
I want you to put the Hackney Pony video live here and just
this is it.
No, I think I'm just gonna go over it really quickly because it's only like 40 seconds. But after running easy for a bit, you begin to accelerate smoothly and efficiently. So it shouldn't just be like you're running and then you're really, really hammering it out. So if your strides say 30 seconds, for example, you're not actually doing your strides for 30 seconds. You're like slowly accelerating into the 30-second stride and then decelerating out of the 30-second stride. And then that's it.
Yeah.
Like that's how you do a stride. And your question is like, how or which one of these makes me faster? So yes, we believe strides are what make you faster. That's why we just stick them in. They're like the magical pill for runners. And we believe that, again, if you're consistent, if you're injury free, over time, your injury, or not your injury, your easy pace should increase. But if you're not running easy on your easy days, you will not get faster. It is not possible.
That's such a good point.
So yeah, I like you should get slightly faster. But one, if you're not running easy on your easy days, you won't. And two, it doesn't really matter because your easy days should really be easy. So sometimes they're going to be faster than others. We just had a very special athlete who I hope listens to this, who just started with us this week again after taking some time off. And in her log, she said, "Oh, today I did my easy run. It was the fastest it's ever been." And I congratulated her because that's amazing. But also, it's not surprising, right? She's taken quite a bit of time off. So her easy pace will be a little bit faster. And then after she's been training with us for a bit and she's tired, it'll go down, and that's totally cool.
Yeah.
So yeah, I guess, like, I'm sure you've heard, especially if this is the same person that asked the strength training question, so they clearly listen.
I think we could also say, because these are all posted on the Facebook page, so you already know who's all asking questions.
I know. We do questions a lot, and I that's true. It's
always keep it secret. Yeah.
One of our nicks. Yeah. So clearly you're educated. So yeah, like just. I don't know where I'm going with this anymore because I'm pregnant and I have pregnancy brain, but
let you lead.
I told Jenny I really hope this doesn't happen because this just happened to me like 20 minutes ago. But yeah, I wanted to say that you can't really go too slow, and you've probably listened to a lot of podcasts and you've probably educated yourself on this. So I'm sure you've heard you can never go too slow, and I do believe that.
Yeah. I guess one thing I don't know about in there, and I'd be curious on, is like when too slow changes your stride. Like if you're running with somebody else and you're like slog jogging and like in a way that hurts you, that's like the only way I'd probably caution that. Because I have seen that come up with a few people where it's like, oh, you can never go too slow, and like, but I'm not running. I'm like, well, that might be more of like a problem.
Yeah, that's actually a really good point, Jenny, and I agree with you. But if you're not running anymore, then yeah, that's it's not the same thing.
Yeah.
The
only other thing I would add, especially looking at this question, is with the like intervals or speed work. Sometimes the goal in that too is actually to practice and train for speed to feel more effortless. So that is not to say your workouts will ever feel easy, but they also don't have to feel like death. So like I go into some workouts, the 3 or 5 by 3 minute hills, and sometimes we'll approach that with like, it doesn't have to be like death to be effective. It needs to maintain, like Katrina was saying, maintain that form as best as possible. If you're getting sloppy, you should actually probably be easing off the speed a bit to reduce injury risk. Because also as ultra and endurance athletes, we are not winning because of our fastest sprint, right? That is not, and our fastest sprint isn't really a sprint. So if you can do like a 6-minute kilometer at the end of a very long race, you might out sprint someone else. So it's not about that top speed. It's about the effortless speed that will contribute and should, like Katrina was saying, with a lot of other caveats, come to lead to make your easy pace a little bit faster.
That's a very good point. Yes. Yeah. So this next question is, how do you find and get to your body's sweet spot with distance and workouts that you train just enough for? a goal or race, but not overtrain. So how do you find your body's sweet spot? So this is my last question to lead. And maybe if we were more professional, Jenny would have read these questions to me, but I read to myself and I answer to myself. And Jenny will read to herself and answer herself.
Next time.
Yes. Yes, next time. Yeah. So it's just the way I look at this question, I guess, is your body will tell you if you're doing too much. This is why we build in lower mileage weeks, whether they be less structured speed work or hills or actual lower mileage weeks when we're building, so we can check in on things. So it's completely natural to feel fatigued in building weeks, or even natural for sore muscles from time to time. But if you don't feel rested after a low week, this actually just tells us that we probably need to cut back on something, or we need to look at something else that's not related to your training. So maybe we need to look at your nutrition and up your calorie intake, or just look at what's going on outside of running. You'll also notice that as your distance increases significantly, that when we're in bigger training blocks, your strength workouts decrease, as I mentioned in the first question. And this is our way of keeping things in balance. So right now, take stock of how you feel physically and mentally. Are you overtired? Are you noticing that you have a low sex drive? Are you being short with your loved ones? Like this can tell us a lot too. So that's kind of a simple answer, but you really have to just see how you're feeling. Yeah.
And know that there's greater risk with overtraining than being undertrained. So you'll learn it in time, but really listening when your body is telling you something, because overreaching isn't going to get you to that next goal as successfully.
Yeah, totally.
Oh, my turn?
Your turn.
Okay, dear Jenny, what do you love about coaching, hate about it? And what's the main advice you would give to anybody about how to work most successfully with coaches? So I think we both love so much about coaching. This is truly the favorite part of us for Pacific Pine Running Co. and what we've created here. I think what we love, or what I love most, is just getting to be alongside the journey of other people with running. You get to see so many different areas of their life, and just so much comes out in the running journey. And yeah, it's so special. I think we can all learn so much from our own time spent on the trail or on the road. And I really love, what that brings out in people. Even the challenging stuff, right? It's all there. What do I hate about it? I don't think I hate anything about it. I think one of maybe a frustration sometimes is having like a lack of answers. Like sometimes I think I wish that it could be like this single cut. I don't quite wish it could be a cut and paste template, because that would be boring, but I wish that I always knew what would work best for every single person. That would be lovely. I don't expect to ever feel that way about it. But yeah, I wish I was a genie.
I do too.
Yeah. Or like, I think maybe, and maybe this is the next question, actually, maybe advice that I'd give to anybody how to work with coaches most successfully is to, I think, be open to the coaching process. So trusting your coaches and believing in the process that they provide you with is probably one of the most critical aspects. Like if you come to us and you already know what you're going to do for your running, then we're not really providing much of a service. So yeah, I'd say trusting your coaches, trusting the process, asking questions, right? It's okay to be like, why am I doing this? Or what's your thought process? Like having communities like this is fantastic. I think as an athlete, you should always feel open to asking why somebody's putting some type of thing into your life. And being honest, right? So sometimes it's really hard to say when things hurt or don't feel good, or you just feel off, or maybe there's something else going on in life that you just don't even want to share. So being able to say like, there's something, or there's this thing, and having that kind of trusting relationship as well.
Yeah, that's a really good answer. I don't know if I would add anything to it. But yeah, that was a really good point, I think, on the last thing where you said be honest. So in the last question, I kind of mentioned, like, if you're noticing, like they asked about the sweet spot, and I said, if you're noticing anything that's off, let us know. And so it might be weird to talk to your coach about your sex drive, but honestly, like if like it's happened to me, like it happens to some people, and that just tells you, oh well, there's probably something going on and I need to look at it. And then we do. And it's often like so many of our answers are eating more for like everything. But yeah, you just be really honest and trust the process, because if you don't believe in what we're coaching, there's no point.
You probably won't do it, right? Like,
No.
I wouldn't.
No.
Yeah. Okay, next one is, how do you choose the perfect shoes for your run? Shoes for you. Wow, I'm making them up. What is your take on rotating between a few shoes as opposed to wearing the same shoes for every run? So choosing the perfect shoes, I can say, is probably just a process and a journey. Because I guess this, again, it's a great two-part question, really well thought out, obviously probably from experience here. Rotating between shoes as opposed to wearing the same ones probably varies a lot on the athlete, because certain athletes might need a certain type of shoe to assist with imbalances, like a stability shoe versus a neutral shoe. Maybe a cushion shoe versus, like, a zero drop, which I never, I'm not pro zero drop. I don't run in them personally, but again, there might be cases or times where or if that's what somebody's done for years and it works for them without injury, then like probably aren't going to go in and put them in a 10 millimeter drop or anything like that. So I'd say if you're injury free and you don't have any aches and pains, it would be good to be able to rotate between similar styles. So similar drops, maybe some slight variation there, but similar like structure. So I wouldn't suggest going between a neutral shoe and a stability shoe. Like, you're messing with kind of the, I guess, anatomy of your feet in that way. But I like to be able to rotate shoes slightly, because what I found over time, when I love a certain style and brand, is it ends up changing and then you're in the same spot. So if you can get the same pair for a couple of years in a row, great, but chances are that won't be your lifelong shoe. So you do have to be able to be flexible, and knowing a couple that work for you helps when you have a race coming up and can't, like me, grabbing your new shoes on the way to the race and you can't find them. Don't do that. How to find the perfect shoes, again, I think it depends. Again, that's a big question, depending on if there are foot or stride related issues. And that might take working alongside a physiotherapist, again, depending on a lot of different factors. So let's say finding the perfect shoe is, if you're lucky enough to find them just by trial and error and liking some, that's great. Otherwise, yeah, it might take a little bit more work sometimes.
Yeah, I agree. I think the best example of this is Chrissy Mail. How she runs in like Vask hiking trail shoes or whatever, and she's been running in them forever. And they pretty much only exist because she's the only person that buys them. Like, that's the best example ever of just like, like if it's not broke, don't fix it. And maybe ask yourself why you want to buy a bunch of different shoes. And Jenny's answer is perfect. Like, just stick with something that's similar in feel and shape, and not too crazy. And don't fart around with your shoes in peak training. Save that for now.
Yeah. Yeah, like if you're gonna swap something, and be really in tune with it, check your lace, or just honestly, like, and we could probably do a whole Q&A about shoes, or like reviews of shoes, because we both run in really different shoes actually, which I think is awesome. But yeah, like you could also learn a little bit about shoes, like know what your average drop is, know what your cushioning patterns have been like in your last shoes, your lacing systems, your toe width, like those types of things, whether you have a narrow or a wider foot, or like touching the arch onto the shoe or not, will kind of help guide you when you look for other shoes. All right. Next one. Even if you are not doing heart rate training, when is it a good time to focus on or worry about your heart rate? Great question. So first of all, worrying about heart rate, I mean, from the medical sense, right? If your heart is doing crazy things that you can feel, good to pay attention to. Like if you have fluttering or anything that's abnormal, obviously, like, we're not medical experts in this video, so or outside of it necessarily. So check that out with your doctor. I am not a doctor. I always find that one weird. I'm like, I work in the health field. I'm not a doctor. Get your heart checked out by somebody else if you need to. Yeah. So in terms of worrying about it, if you're feeling like fatigued with different kind of heart palpitations or anything like that, definitely something worth talking to a doctor about, just to be safe. They'll likely do a stress test. And in terms of heart rate with training, this one is one that people hear so much about, especially as heart rate monitors become, I think, more and more popular in like the wrist-based form they are now. I think heart rate can sometimes reinforce what we're learning based on effort, but I actually would say that overall it's not really something to focus on. Um, in in most cases, because it should, like, what I find is if you're going based on effort, what you're going to see is that your effort maybe looks like a certain heart rate. So if you learn the effort first, you can be like, oh, this is probably, like, for me, I know based on whatever it is, if I'm really pushing, I'm going to hit above a 180 or 88 sometimes beats per minute. And like I can kind of feel that and like, oh, okay, this is probably that type of effort. I look down, if it's actually even tracking my heart rate, yeah, it's probably pretty accurate. Other times I think honestly that our wrist heart rate monitors are so inaccurate, it's usually not tracking, or it again, it tells me all different things all the time, that don't match my perceived effort. So yeah, it can be worth checking in on, but I wouldn't use it as a guide. And we don't in our training approach. There are some theories and approaches to running out there, like the Maffetone method, for example, where it's purely based on heart rate and heart rate zones. And then again, you really need to be following those protocols to reach the potentially proven kind of benefits of that protocol. But in most general training, I would say it's not really something to focus on.
Yeah, we're not really the coaches for that. But I guess like her question is like when should I use heart rate? And I think if she's really wondering this, I would say like one, if you're not able to use perceived effort, like Jenny just said, like if you feel like you're really not able to use perceived effort at all, well then I guess that's your only other way of measuring it.
Yeah, that's a good
I
point.
feel like this athlete is pretty good at it. And another reason why you might want to use it is if, again, you feel like the wheels are just like totally falling off. Like you're injured all the time. Every strength workout is difficult. You're struggling to get out the door. Like then it just might be something to start looking at.
It might tell you more than about like other stressors, right? Like if you're, I think that's where I was kind of maybe really poorly saying that it can like reinforce what you feel. Like if you're on a course and it feels hard and your race effort, like you're pushing at race effort and you look down and you're like, oh yeah, that matches, right? Whereas other days you're like, yeah, the wheels are falling off. This run feels like junk. And you look down and you're like, oh, well, my heart rate is way higher than it ever is.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like maybe there's something else going on here. Again, for people who menstruate, like that could be cycle related. For other people, it could be sleep related, diet related, right? So there could be other factors, and maybe that's like a checkpoint.
Yeah, totally. So I guess like the next one is when to worry. So Jenny answered this perfectly, so I'm not going to add anything to it. But something that, because we do get asked about heart rate a lot. So something that you can do if you're one of our athletes and you're really interested in heart rate is go to a real exercise physiologist place and like get your real maximum heart rate tested. Never do the 220 minus your age. It's like, it's so inaccurate. No matter where you look, it will say, don't do that. So yeah, don't do that. Go to a physiologist. The next best thing you could do to find your heart rate, but then you need to find an accurate heart rate monitor. And wrist ones are not as accurate as the chest ones. Is what's it called? Well, it's a lactate threshold test. And essentially you run for 30 minutes and then you take the last 20 minutes of that run, the heart rate from the last 20 minutes, and then you average it. And that should be your maximum heart rate, because apparently the first 10 minutes doesn't count.
You're like gonna like spike it, yeah.
Yeah. So that's a way. And then I read I've never done it, but the David Roach way is the hill test. I'd have to look it up.
Yeah, again, there are ways to do it. I think
I would just Google it, like David Roach heart rate or something. And I think you run, here it is, you find a moderate grade hill, you run for something for 20 minutes. So yeah, go to a physiologist. You can do the 30-minute test, which is like pretty common actually in marathon running. And a lot of people use it, so it's relatively accurate, I guess. Or you can do the David Roach approach, who's one of the biggest ultra running coaches ever. So a lot of people trust his word. And that's how you can look at it, which you didn't even ask, but that's just, I don't know. I just thought, oh, well, we always get this question. And
Yeah, I guess the thing I find, like, people ask a lot about heart rate. I think human brains obviously like measurables, so I feel like
Yeah,
it's one thing that we really like as a concrete measure.
yeah.
But honestly, when you're using like a wrist monitor and there's so many factors that play into heart rate that it's a number, but it's not always a measure of what you think you're measuring.
Yeah, I know, and I feel like sometimes too with heart rate, like, um, maybe it can scare you when you don't need to be scared.
Yeah.
Like, you go to do your hill sprints and it's a super hot day, 'cause heat can affect your heart rate as well, and you look at your watch and you think, "Oh, no,
Mhm.
I'm working too hard," which might not be the case.
Yeah.
Like, it might just be a really hot day, I don't know.
And again, like with your wrist, you look down again and it's not measuring the next second. You're like, oh, right? Like,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
so that's why I said, "Oh, like, maybe if you're, like, not capable of perceiving your own effort, it's something to use,"
you
but
could use it to maybe develop your ability to measure your perceived yeah, exertion more accurately with to eventually kind of not use it, I guess.
mhm,
Yeah.
yeah,
Okay.
that's
Last
fine.
question. So this one is directed kind of at me, but like, yeah, we can both, again, we could probably do a whole nutrition-ish type of spiel. But somebody asked me if I've always been a vegan. Short answer there, no, I have not. Grew up on a farm and ate a lot of meat for a very long time, and only actually became like a real vegan probably, I think it was last year, but I honestly can't
It's
remember.
been over a year.
Yeah, honestly, it's 2020 is weird. Like, I'm like, I don't know, has it been 3 months or I think it was a year.
No, 'cause
So
we went snowshoeing, and I made you a vegan grilled cheese, and that
oh,
was,
that was
like,
nice of you.
December 2019, and
Yeah.
before that, you were already transitioning, so maybe you weren't full vegan, but you were
Yeah, I've been
very
vegetarian for a good couple years and then, honestly ate, like, ice cream and eggs and cheese.
Mhm.
And then, yeah, cut those out, I guess, just over a year ago. So, no, I haven't always been vegan, and, for at races, I find that there are actually usually enough options. At races, I tend to actually carry my own fuel pretty much entirely, with the use of people like Katrina showing up with it for me. And then there's little things that I would say let slide. Like I will eat a handful of M&Ms if that's what my body wants at an aid station, even though they definitely have probably some milk chocolate in them. Um, so I mean, there's moments like that too where I know it's if that's what I need to continue my run. But again, that hasn't really happened. I tend to eat pickles at aid stations, which are great, and carry my own gels, which doesn't seem to pose a problem. And then variety of foods. I think I'm pretty fortunate that I'm such a sweet tooth that I can, if I have pickles and gels all day, I'm like, this is great. It's just more sugar. So I haven't really come into that scenario of not having options. That being said, I haven't done 100 milers that are 36 hours long. I hope.
Yeah, I haven't heard of too many races with issues, especially the big ones in states. Like
Mhm.
they're fully stocked. I do remember listening to Claire
Yes.
Johnstone's podcast about Wham and how
Yeah.
there were like no vegan options at all, and it was terrible, and all there was for vegans was like a bunch of cold food.
Or
And I'm
like for
really,
vegans, sometimes you get the celiac options, and I'm like, I'm not celiac. I want gluten. I
I
just don't
would
want animal
I would like
products.
some meat. Yeah, yeah. So my thought on that is that since then, Gary's gotten the feedback and it'll probably be better next
Yeah,
time.
and I think that was like first year running, like kind of
Mm.
an oversight or whatever happened there. So yeah, I think you're right. Most big races would have some options.
Yeah,
But yeah, again, too, you just know going in that you're probably going to carry your own or supply your own through your oh my gosh, it's been so long through your drop bags. Like, what are those things we drop places?
yeah, because like if you're thinking about long distance vegan running, like you start with any of the normal small race stuff, and you typically start with more sweet, and then you transition to more salty, and all that stuff is pretty good in Canada. European races are way different. They have like meat sticks and chicken soup, and that's it. But
Yeah,
Canada and the States, Destination Trail Races has a lot of stuff too. I know that because Candace talks about all of her
yeah,
vegan options, but they have like hot miso soup, hot rice, hot like potatoes, because you're not eating meat when you're
no.
typically,
I think
even
that's
if you
actually
are a meat eater.
you
Yeah.
reminded me there though, that was one thing I came up that I was disappointed in one time because I was just like post run. I think I finished a run and the soup after was like a chicken noodle soup, and I was like, oh, soup would be so nice.
Yeah.
But yeah, again, like that's post race. I could go get my own. So
Yeah, yeah, but I think I don't know, things are good, and if Jenny and I ever host an ultra, we'll have the best vegan options ever
mhm.
because I don't know, like I'm not vegan and I like miso soup, like that's my favorite one to have, and I don't think I'm alone there. So, and I like rice balls. Rice balls are my favorite, just
They
plain.
are.
Like
They
they
are your
got me
favorite.
through hurt. Actually, that's all I was eating. So
Mhm.
yeah, there's a lot of good options,
Yeah.
I think. But
Yeah. So I think
that's
that's all our questions.
that's all we have. Yeah. Yeah. And I guess we'll end, or did you
Yeah.
want to? Yeah. Okay.
I think so. Again, we'll probably try and do this like I don't know how often. If you guys want this again, tell us. If you want this more often, less often, never again. Let
Right.
us know. But yeah, we could maybe try and do this again sometime soon. And yeah, I don't know. That's about it.
Okay. Okay. I'll
Bye.
talk to you soon. Bye.